Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's your boy Crypto Wolf back again, and today I got something interesting here for you. I'm going to show you something that I've been playing around with for a long time now, for months really, that I really haven't even talked about or showed anybody even in real life, and I haven't even really seen anybody else doing it. I think, well, I'll get into that here in a second, but it is a secret trendline strategy that shows up in Market Cipher, specifically Market Cipher B. And I'm going to let you guys in on the secret here, even though it's not terribly huge secret, but I really don't ever see people doing it. I think one time I saw CryptoFace showing about this a little bit, and I kind of took it a little step further. And as you can see down here on Market Cipher B, I have this little orange trend line drawn out. And just glancing at it, you can kind of tell, well, it seems like we're kind of connecting. Don't look at that one yet. Connecting the tops or the bottoms of these momentum waves. And I'll tell you exactly how I do this. It's never going to be 100% precise. Just like, if you're drawing trend lines up here, you're going to have times where it doesn't come all the way down to it. You'll have other times where it pretty much comes exactly there. So like everything else in trading, it's a skill. You got to work at it. It's an art form, if you will. And I'll show you now. And by the way, I think I'm going to call this the Market Cipher B secret sauce trend line strategy. What do you think? Too long? All right. How about MCB trend line strategy? Shorten it a little bit, get a little acronym in there. Everybody likes their acronyms. Yeah, clean this up a little bit so we can see. Now, there's not a huge correlation to the price candles themselves, although in a general sense, it does kind of form a trend in that direction. But let's look down here. So, make this a little bit bigger here. We had this momentum wave coming down here, and we got our little green dot where the VWAP crossed over. So if you were to start drawing your trend line right across the top of the next one. Now, oftentimes, if we're just starting out and say we only have this much chart, I will actually connect those green dots. And a lot of times it'll actually play out like that pretty nicely. But then as time goes on, you'll see like, okay, it lines up a little bit better with other features if you kind of have to fudge it a little bit. And oftentimes, quite often, you may have to just clip the top off of a couple of these momentum waves. But you'll see how you can line it out as we go on here. So you got the bottom of this momentum wave, specifically that crossover point where that green dot is. Then you come over to the next one. This one, it kind of cuts through, which isn't a big deal. It doesn't have to be perfectly across the bottoms of every single one of them. Because again, this is like it's like having a support and resistance line where it wicks over the top a little bit. Think of it like that. And you'll notice as we cross over, like pretty much almost every time where it crosses the zero line here, you'll notice that the money flow kind of has some feature that correlates to it as well. So in this case, you can see money flow is coming down, and then we came right back up, almost like we were riding it like a resistance line for a minute there. And you'll see most of the time it's going to be like a money flow crossover. But I randomly just drew this one because I was like, oh, hey, there's a line. Now, this is one that you don't see too often, but the RSIs will actually kind of play into it as well a little bit. And in this case, man, it was like those RSIs just came up, hit it as resistance. Kind of interesting. right here, almost like it hit it as support before breaking through. So it's interesting to see the actual indicators and the oscillators down here behaving in a very similar manner as the price candles. And let's slide down here. I just randomly dropped a few on here as examples, and then we'll go through and we'll do some from scratch, and you can kind of see the process of drawing them. But this guy here, you know, started off down here where we actually had some bullish divergence going. And again, clip the tip off of that one. Oh, that sounded terrible. Came up here, so we pretty much came across, you know, if I were drawing this early on, I kind of started out like over here, and you can see it acted like some support on the money flow over here, and came through right. We did actually have a money flow crossover, as you could see by the little green one candle there. But I was like, okay, you know, after drawing this, I'm like, well, that lines up with the crossover, and it actually does line up with these bottom green dots, you know, where we dip down in the momentum wave. And you could, I already moved this a little bit, but it gets a little bit more precise. But I was like, okay, if I move this and lined it up with the first two green dots and kept it coming across here, bam, we ran right through this spot, right through that green dot, right through that green dot. Interesting, huh? It is. And you know, and it, for the longest time I was doing this, I'm like, oh, okay, it's kind of anecdotal, you know, like blind luck, really. I didn't put too much credence into it, and I've just kind of randomly kept trying this over time. Maybe like, yeah, once a month or something, I'd see something like, oh, hey, look at that. Like, oh, that forms like a little trend line. And I've been doing it for so long at this point that I'm like, you know, I think there's something to it. And again, you know, you don't want to, like, if you're drawing this ahead of time here and your momentum wave's coming up, you're not going to base your sole prediction of where this momentum wave's going just off of that line, because, you know, again, we're breaking through, but here kind of hit some resistance and again broke through. But it tends to work out that the little trend that's going over the period of this trend line here very often will kind of peak or max out at that trend line. As you can see here, I mean, even though the price still generally went to the upside, we came back and then we had another little trend line going from there. But, you know, it kind of ended, the very last green dot was dead on right on that line. And another interesting one I just noticed right now that I didn't notice a minute ago, again, the RSI's finding support right on that trend line. And you'll have other times too where, let me see if it comes up again. Ah, here. So like this guy I was playing around, rather than just moving it, I actually drew a second one just to fiddle with it a little bit. And right here you can see a very important VWAP crossing the zero line right there. And how did I get this one? So we went from this second green dot right here, came across to the top of this, or sorry, the bottom of this momentum wave to the peak right there. Pretty much through that green dot, you know, just ever so slightly off, but I went more off of being precise here. And it lined up perfectly with the VWAP cross right there. And again, we actually had a little bit of resistance on the RSI. Interesting. And then this guy here, I didn't draw terribly accurately, but I was basically connecting these first two green dots and just seeing where it went. And as you can see, it crossed over right exactly where the money flow crossed over. It's kind of interesting. Extrapolated out for a little while. Again, a little bit of resistance in the RSI. Came over here, crossed right through the green dot at the top of this guy right here. Interesting indeed. Indubitably. All right, so let's go back here and let's find somewhere we see a trend to draw some lines, some stick figures. Some modern art masterpieces. What do we got here? If we were to connect these. You know. Oh, whoops. All right, so what do we got here? What do we got here? So going across these, that money flow kind of hit some support right there at that trend line. Had a momentum wave crossover right where it crossed the zero. All kind of stuff going on right here. We had the VWAP come up, kind of bounce off. RSI come down and off. Other RSI come up and off. Hovered right below that trend line, bounced off again. Regular RSI, look at that. Found a little support, bounced off of there. Nothing too much over here. We didn't have any more big momentum waves to go off of. Kind of a coincidence that those ended up right there. But let's move along. Now, the scale that you have things at can also do this. See, look, we got from this peak, clip that one a little bit, perfectly through that peak, perfectly through that peak. And yeah, we got some little RSI action just about every time it came up to that trend line right there. But again, then we look up in the price, had our divergence coming in about that time where it started, and then nice little half pipe going through there. Let's move along. Let's see what else we see. Let's go to a different time frame. So that was on the 1 hour. Bitcoin, of course. My apologies for not picking something different and interesting. All right. So if I were to take this bottom, and you can see, even if I'm a little, a little generous with this one, not quite through the green dot, but bam, right there, money flow crossover. And sometimes, and it doesn't have to be like a ton. Obviously, we had no momentum up here in the heights over here. But the money flow crossovers, more times than not, will work out ahead of anything else. Like here, even if you, you drew this early, just connected these two lines right here, and you're, coming this way in the price. Let's say, you got that red dot, you're coming down, you're like, okay, you draw this, you connect these two. Time goes by, you start seeing, okay, money flow's coming down. I'd be thinking, okay, somewhere in this area, likely to have a money flow crossover, which it was a little bit early on this one. If you're extrapolating your curvature out on this one, you might have predicted maybe something a lot like that trend line, but came down a little steeper, a little quicker. And look at the RSI just bouncing right off of there again. Let's see, what else do we see? And, if nothing else, this also helps you to develop an eye for trends down here. You start seeing that just disappear. Where'd that go? Oh, well. Helps you develop a little bit of an eye for, catching some of these trend lines. Let's see, let's connect these off a little better. You kind of see here. Well, okay, we wouldn't know that ahead of time. So even if we came right here, going through these two green dots, the crossover was coming up pretty quick. But the RSIs did find some support right there. Matter of fact, come up a little bit more, goes right through that green dot as well. Money flow kind of bounced off. And you kind of get the idea. I mean, just the more you play around, you know, playing connect the dots, drawing these trend lines through. Look at this money flow crossover coming, off of way back here. Yeah, almost had another little stop right there too, but looks like it comes out to that one. So let's just keep this going a little bit. Where were we? Caught that one a little high, but again, came through here, money flow crossover. Had a couple turns right there, turn right there, turn up here. Turned up on a Tuesday. And look at this action right here. Kind of got a couple ways you could take that. Let's see what's going on with this one. Not much on the money flow, but definitely a whole lot of rising waves right there. What do we got? We got a VWAP cross at the intersection. Not too much else out there. What if we connect up these guys? Okay, we got the last little peak making contact there. Money flow kind of following that general trend line until it starts coming back down. Again with the VWAP cross at the intersection. And that's kind of a weird one. Even just connecting these dots, coming through. Almost there on the money flow crossover, but again, did hit the VWAP crossover. That's just kind of a funky one right there, but your general money flow just resistance at that point. Does this line up with anything else? Not great right there. Kind of hitting off the top of those lines, or those waves. Not too much over. That one's kind of stretching it a little bit. There's just a lot going on over here. So let's take a look at where we're at the moment. Do some live time. See if we can make some little predictions going on here. Clean up this rat's nest of orange streaks. All right, so what do we got showing right now? Man, those are split. Just continuing to be split. That's kind of ugly. So, not a lot pointing forward. What do we got here? This guy right here, oddly enough, turned into like a VWAP resistance level. A little bit of RSI support right there. A little support right there. Not too much at the crossover. We'll see how that. I'm going to leave that one there. We'll see if this plays out here in the future at all. Just to let you know what's going on with the price here. Money flow coming back to the upside, which is nice. Again, this is the daily chart. We got a 15 from a 14. That's looking pretty good. We got 19 hours left, so fairly new candle, 4 hours old, so plenty of room to go on that one. We'd like to see this go above this previous one. Just spitballing out of curiosity here. When you get to a point like this, when you're just drawing lines in like smaller areas, not, coming all the way across things, you're kind of pushing it a little bit. Like I'm asking too much of it to be drawing a line right here, but you never know. I mean, hey, this wave could come up, get knocked off of that. Maybe a little bump right there, come back down. I'll leave it just so we can come back and look at it later. Let's see, coming back in time. We got a little. All right, here we go. Now we're talking. Okay. So we've got the dot off this momentum wave to this momentum wave. A little bit of confirmation right here on this little peak. And our money flow is coming up right about the same area to where this would give me an idea that we're likely or could likely, that we could likely see the money flow crossover right around this area. See what happens. But I like that one. When you get confirmation further down the line like that, it's a good sign. It be boding well for us. And this is like almost a straight resistance line at this point. Look at this. We got here, here. Clip that off a little bit. Here, 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 here. Turned into support a little bit on the RSI. Just that will be the what is that? 65. So 65 is going to be the level to break on the momentum wave, which is probably going to take some serious bullish action to bust through that wall right there. Still check the 4 hour. Let's see what's up the 4 hour. Now, as you can see, when you change time frames, these just generally speaking completely go to shit. They will in some cases hold true in a different way. Like here you can see, I don't even know where we're coming from at this point, but coming through, we got a little bit of hit up here on a little trigger wave. Almost a kind of hit up here on the trigger wave. Came through this dot a little bit. This guy right here is just off in space. He's just lost like George Clooney in Gravity. Or I guess you could say what Sandra Bullock. It was Sandra Bullock in Gravity, wasn't it? She was the one who went flying off into space. That's what that line's doing. And if you don't like that, which I don't blame you because I don't either, if you were to go to this visibility setting, you could switch it so that it only shows on the daily. I don't care about I'll probably turn the weekly off too. So at this point, it's only showing on the daily charts. You could change that to 1 so it only shows on the 1 day chart. Funny thing is though, just a heads up, if you're going through here on these charts and it's like you don't come back to the daily in a while, which first off, shame on you. You should be checking the daily often. But if you don't, you'll come back to it like days or weeks later and you'll be looking over here and that trend line will be like way back here. And it just keeps adding up and adding up over here. You can't see that, but it keeps adding up back here off screen in the background. And then when if you go to use TradingView on your phone and there's a ton of stuff on there, especially with having Market Cipher open, oh my gosh, it'll be so slow and sluggish. It can get frustrating. So just a heads up there. And look at this one. Ended up being like a resistance level for all these money flow waves. Now again, this isn't really going off anything on this time frame, but it kind of is. Just doesn't have a good start point. But it's interesting to see some of that little correlation between time frames as well, but I don't often bank on that. You know, it's more or less specific to the time frame that you drew it on. Now, with all that said, now you're going to be mucking up my chart here. Hold on. Let me hide these. Do the same thing. That's kind of annoying, especially for the last little lesson I'm going to show you guys here. Is just a kind of a further continuation of what we've been talking about. And I'm going to have to find an example of it. Let's see. Come on. I know we went into a squeeze somewhere. Squeeze me. Come on. Come on, come on, come on. That's close, but not really. Okay, this is kind of an example. Not a great one, but... So... Say you had... Oh, look at that, see? Money flow crossover. I'm telling you. It happens more times than not. So let's say we were back here on the chart. And as you can see, we're getting higher lows on the momentum waves on the bottom. Lower highs on the top. It's kind of, you know, coming into a little a pennant or a flag pattern, whatever you want to call it. And so you draw these out. For one, where these two tend to cross over generally happens to be like, you know, money flow changeovers. In this case, we got both actually. So look at that, right through the dot. Where this one crossed, we got to change over here. Where this one crossed, we got to change over here. Very interesting. But, you know, we're coming in, we're squeezing in this pattern a little bit. Look at that, even the VWAP came off. That's interesting. Before finally breaking up and out. Pull back, and at that point, you know, we were out of that pattern. Now, typically, with patterns like that, let me pull this thing all the way back to there even. With, you know, patterns like this, they say generally around between the 3/4 of a way to the end here. So like from about 75% to 90% oftentimes of where the breakout will be. In this case, this one almost happened a little bit early, which is why I said it's not the greatest example, but you see what I'm going for here. You know, when you start getting the higher lows and you're getting the lower highs, you can kind of draw this out. And don't expect the breakout to be where these cross. I mean, that's almost never the case, but man, we did have the peak to the bottom right. You know, if you put a vertical line here, let's see, right where the two lines intersect was perfectly where the VWAP crossed over, hit the bottom of the momentum wave. So I'm just saying, you know, there's interesting things going on beyond just looking at the price candles, beyond just looking for divergence, you know, looking at the indicators one at a time. There's actually a lot there to be seen, stepping back and looking at everything as a whole. And it's honestly, it's quite amazing how much these things just do these little patterns. The way when you get these correlations, that things tend to happen during those times where things are correlating or crisscrossing or intersecting. But I think I'm going to leave it at that one. Tell you what, at this point, if you're still watching, I'll do a little price update real quick. Where are we at? 10 minute. Sheesh. Dry air around here. All right, let's see. What do we got going on here? So we came up, had our nice little spike. Oh, by the way, from the previous video, the that live analysis video that was prior to this one, where we drew out these support and resistance levels, as well as our fib channel up here. And if you remember me saying that I was going to be watching when this fib level intersects this support level, I said I would be expecting the price to come up here and to be a good spot to take profits. Well, did that play out or what? I mean, look at that. That's almost, hold on. So let's see. 44,485 was the level we drew. This candle topped at 44,500. So $14.25 off from the exact level that it stopped at. You know, I just did brush the dirt off my shoulder a little bit here. You're welcome. I'm playing. I'm really not that cocky. I like to have fun. Look at this. Look at that. Found support right at this fib level, just as our little moving average came in, had a little bit of a confluence going between those two. That's what I'm talking about. You get these spots where, you know, more than one thing comes into play, and it's a very strong location. Let's see what we got going on B down here. So we just crossed up on the VWAP. We got 18 to 21. The RSIs are together. Again, we're on the 10 minute, so this is a bit of a short-term scalping. I don't know. A lot of people consider like the 1, 2, 3 up to the 5 minute like a scalping time frame. Personally, I don't even think I've touched the 1 minute chart in months. It's just it's like going on Twitter. It's just toxic. It's all constant chaos. Granted, it's a little bit better with the Heikin-Ashi candles, but if you are, you know, if you're trying to be very particular about where you enter and or exit your trade, yeah, the lower time frames are going to be good because they help you narrow it down to like the best possible price, at least at the time that you're looking. But personally, I like to have, you know, sometimes I'll come down to the 4 just to get, that's usually about the lowest I'll go. But I like the 4, the 8, 10, 12, 15. Those are ones that I tend to leave the chart on the most, especially while I'm at work, and I'll have this open on like the right monitor, so that way even if I'm not at my desk, I can walk by and it'll be on like the 10 or the 15 minute, and I can just glance at it and be like, yeah, okay, that's doing that. RSS, all right. Just walk away, come back. Although, man, I've been away from the desk too much lately, so I've been missing out on stuff. But looking at the overall thing here, our RSI is pretty low, though still in the red. Getting lower on the momentum waves. Money flow just been super choppy lately. Let's see. Looks like we may be curving back up. VWAP. It's kind of clipping over a little bit sideways. Getting up to 24. Yeah, I don't imagine we're going to get above this high right here. So we're likely downtrending. We'll see what happens when we come back to this fib level. You know, we may come all the way back to this red one here, which is far, far away. Jeez. That's what you get for being on the small time frames. That's the 236. All right. But yeah, just interesting how this, you know, this, whatchamacallit, I don't know, condensing wedge, this little squeeze right here worked out with that intersection point, that vertical line there. That was beautiful. So yeah, if you got Market Cipher, play around with it. You know, just start doodling. The more you do it, the more you practice, the more you'll see kind of what works, what doesn't. You know, another one you'll come across sometimes. Just say you're drawing across maybe some wave tops or just connecting some dots like this. And oftentimes when you get close to this 100 line, you know, you might have something that comes up and peaks right there, whether it be the RSI or the momentum wave or both, like in this case. So let me know what you guys think. Now that I gave you the recipe to the secret sauce, cherish it. Hold on to it tightly. Pass it down from generations to generations. But don't tell nobody. Even though I just told everybody. But you know, do what I say, not as I do. You know how that goes. It's the politician thing. Do that stuff. All right. Love you guys. Have a fantastic day. For all my people in all the countries around the world watching this, props to you. Thank you for stopping by. We love you guys, regardless of what anybody's government's doing. Hey, us people all got to stick together. Crypto is a great way to do that. Great way to cross cultures and borders and languages and bring the actual people together, regardless of whatever these government establishment types are doing. So, all right, with that, I'm out. I'll leave you with my little pirate flag with the skeleton pirates creeping through the black water. All right, peace.